Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/your20-minute podcast. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Now, here's your host, David Brower.
Thanks, Alan. This is David Brower with your 20-minute podcast, and our special guest today, Patrick Fitzgibbons, a criminal justice expert who just lives up the road from me. Hi, Patrick. How are you?
How are you? Thanks for having me on.
You bet. It's very rare we get a couple of Coloradans on the same phone call, so this is kind of fun. So you've been around law enforcement, criminal justice roles for over 20 years, a variety of different things, and what are you doing now? What are you using your experience for?
Well, I'm currently, David. I'm currently a police officer in Colorado, right up the road. Like you said, but about a year ago, when I was on the street, I'm a big podcast listener, I'm assuming you are too. So I was listening to a podcast one night on graveyards when we weren't busy, and I said, "Hey, I can do that." And I started a podcast, and it's called CJ Evolution, and it's a great show, and I have a lot of great guests. And the reason why I created it is to kind of educate people more about what law enforcement does. Difficult times we're faced with right now, but I started the show, and I'm having a great time with it. I've been privileged to have best-selling authors on and leaders in law enforcement and other people, so it's a great time. I really enjoy it.
Well, good for you. You're obviously got a great voice and good communication style, so I'm sure it's a home run. How long have you been doing the podcast?
A little over a year now, and it was interesting because I started it and then kind of got busy with life, like most of us get, and then it kind of got shelved for a little bit, and then I started it back up and just been running full steam ahead, and it's a juggling act with full-time work and a podcast, but I love it. It's a passion of mine, and it's great to talk to people like you and other great people.
Well, that's great. And certainly, law enforcement has been in the forefront of a lot of people's minds for a lot of reasons over these last few years, and it doesn't seem like it was that long ago where you just looked up to a police officer, you came by, you shook their hand, they came and spoke at your school, and everything was really good. And then a few years ago, police just started getting bad rap after rap after rap after rap, and some deservingly so, but most by far not, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, some of it is our own doing. We're under the spotlight, David. We should be. We have a lot of responsibility. The public entrusts us, but some of it, I agree with you, is unfair criticism.
Yeah.
But there are tough times, but I do think there is still a lot of support out there for law enforcement, and I see it every day. We go out, we talk to people, we make those connections in the community. We're involved in our community as are other departments. I think there's a lot of support out there, and I think sometimes we see the negative that's going on in the media, but I do believe there is a lot of positive out there, and I agree with you. It's not, I don't think, the way it used to be, but I think there is a lot of support out there for law enforcement, and it's incumbent upon law enforcement professionals like me to keep trying to make those connections and bridge those gaps.
Absolutely right. And one thing I've noticed a few times on NBC Nightly News, they have a thing at the end of their newscast that's, a very positive news story, serving America, different things like that. And periodically, I want to say I've seen probably two in the last 2 or 3 weeks that have been focused on positive things that police officers have done around the country. And it's very rare that law enforcement gets that kind of spotlight in the media. So I was really thrilled to see that.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that too.
So when you're on your podcast and you're talking to these experts and people like me who don't know what we don't know about law enforcement really, other than I'm looking in my rearview mirror, oh crap, I'm speeding. What kind of things, what kind of words of wisdom, what do your experts share that lay people like me need to know about, I guess?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, it's a great question. That we're people. I know that's
right.
I don't know if people know that, but we are doing a very difficult job, and we are going out there every day, and we're putting it on the line, and we're people, and we make mistakes, and we have bad days, and you just I try to tell people, just keep that in your back of your mind that, we're people too. We have families. We don't go out. What I tell people is no officer goes out there wanting to get into some confrontation with somebody or to use some sort of deadly force. I mean, they don't do that. I tell people, are there bad cops out there, David? Yes, of course, but they are the very, very small minority. And I think we've done a good job in the profession to get rid of those bad officers in our midst. Do we still have some work to do? Yes, but I think sometimes people get this view that all officers out there are just, or a vast majority are just corrupt. And no, that's not the case. The officers I work with, brave men and women, are professionals. They're out there doing a tough job in a tough environment. So I just tell people who, students I teach, that you just got to keep that in the back of your mind. I mean, we make mistakes, but we learn from them, and it's a profession, and I'm proud of it.
Good for you, and that's exactly right. I couldn't agree more. The other thing I think, in kind of a strange way, at least in my brain, is that some of the negative stuff, quote unquote, that's happened over the last few years, I think has gotten, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think has gotten the attention of those higher up, if you will, in law enforcement, and they're starting to pay a little more attention to cleaning house, if you will.
Yeah, exactly right. Look, I mean, there's nothing that the professionals in law enforcement hate more than dirty cops.
Yeah.
And, it starts with recruitment, David. I mean, it starts with recruiting the best and the brightest. And we have a lot of, my department's pretty young, and we got the best and the brightest, and other departments do too. But it starts, with getting the right people and making sure that we're hiring the best. There's a very stringent process that we go through in law enforcement to make sure we're getting the best. And, we do a good job at that.
And I think one other point that you made a little bit earlier that we need to spend a minute on, and that is law enforcement is professional. There's no question about it. And there's lots of other job categories, if you will, that are professionals as well. And for those of you who are professionals in your own industry and don't have anything to do with law enforcement to speak of, I think it's prudent for everybody to take a look at their own in-house and say, well, hey, we got some bad apples. Why aren't the police officers entitled to having an issue or two? I mean, 95% of our employees are doing a great job. Why don't we respect law officers and assume that 95 to 98% of them are all doing good work, Yeah,
I think it's a good point. I think, one of it is, law enforcement, I mean, they're out there in the public. I mean, we're under a microscope, and we should be.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, I think we're high visibility. We've been in the news, in a variety of instances over the last couple of years we talked about. And I think that's the reason why I think it's easier for people to say, well, look at that cop out there making a mistake. And I think it's just more high visibility. And that's just the nature of the job. And
agreed.
We need to be held accountable as law enforcement officers, and we need to be under a microscope. And that's just the nature of the job, David. And I think that's probably the reason, in my opinion, why it's just because we're in that that state of visibility all the time.
Folks don't sign up for that lightly.
No, I mean, they don't. I mean, it truly is a calling. It's something that I knew I wanted to do early on in my life. I mean, I served in the military, and I knew when I got out, I wanted to get into law enforcement, and I followed my passion, and I've had a successful run and a successful career.
Well, thanks for your service.
Well, thank you.
You bet. Your experience, leadership, use of force issues, community policies, emotional wellness. Emotional wellness is certainly something that every business, every industry is, being mindful, if you will, is starting to pay more attention to. And how does that play in the law enforcement world?
That's a great question. I mean, I am a big fan, David, of meditation. I meditate every day for at least 10 minutes. I have a great app on my phone. And I'm not going to name it, but there's plenty.
Headspace?
Actually, it is Headspace. Yes, there's Calm. I was using Calm, but now I use Headspace. So I'm not a spokesman for Headspace, by the way.
I'm not either. I have that on my phone too.
But I love it. And back to your, if you would have asked me, a couple of years ago, we would have been talking about mindfulness or meditation. I would have laughed and said, "Come on, I'm not going to do that."
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I mean, this is something I wish we would spend a little bit more time with, especially in the academies. And I think it's so important, emotional wellness for our officers. We teach our officers to go out there and be, big and tough, and that's an important part of the job. But we need to do a better job with having our officers take care of themselves. If we're not taking care of ourselves, and that includes, mental clarity, emotional wellness, how are we going to be able to take care of other people? And, officers see a lot. They suffer with PTSD and other issues, but I think we need to do a better job with, taking care of our officers in terms of mental well-being. I mean, we were incredibly, stressed. Some officers more than others. But I wish we would spend more time with things like meditation and really stressing the benefits, the health benefits of that. It's a tough job, David. We work a variety of hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
I worked graveyards for years and getting little sleep, and I think we need to do a better job. I think a lot of officers do take care of themselves, but I think some of them don't. And it starts with emotional wellness. I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
And I wish, and I think I think it's changing. I mean, I think we're spending a lot more time. I don't know. There's a great author out there, an ex-police officer. His name is Dr. Gil Martin, and he talks about emotional well-being, and he actually goes around and he kind of trains officers and departments on how to take better care of ourselves emotionally. And there's a reason why the military and professional sports teams are doing mindfulness training and meditation, because it is beneficial. It helps me, so I would recommend.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, no matter who you are, where you are in life, if you don't figure out a way to have some kind of balance, man, exactly. It's just a long road.
Exactly.
And I would think, and I don't want to stereotype it, but I would think that it's probably much harder for law enforcement folks that have been around for a while, because they're quote-unquote old school. This is the way we've always done it, and those changes kind of hard for those people, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I was brought up in that environment, and I'm not saying it was, a wrong environment, but you're exactly right. It's changing that mindset that it's okay to. I mean, I was that guy, just a handful of years ago. Right? I'm not going to do that meditation, but I tell you what, I started it, and it's been great. And I start each day. That's part of my morning routine. I get up early, journal for a little bit, and then meditate, and it really kind of charges me for the day ahead.
Well, that's life-changing stuff, man. I mean, we all need to do that.
It is.
We all need to do that, and
exactly.
Hats off to you. And the other thing is, by you doing that, you are able to model that for your fellow officers. They watch, they look, they observe. They're going, oh, that's kind of interesting.
And the one thing that I wanted to kind of mention about the podcast too, David, is the premise is criminal justice. We talk a lot about criminal justice issues,
right.
But I like to bring in other guests that talk about, like we were talking about, emotional wellness and leadership, and kind of tie it back into. I just don't have law enforcement guests on all the time. I mean, I have finance people
right.
come on and talk, and so it all ties back. I don't care what profession you're doing. I mean, it all relates to everything out there. And certainly, I tie it back into law enforcement and how it benefits law enforcement professionals.
Yeah, one of my guests on my podcast, in fact, over the holidays, I'm running kind of a best of for about a week, and so one that's going to air tomorrow or Friday, I can't remember. I think it's tomorrow. Her name is Peggy Seelfan, and she's an expert on stress and anxiety, and she is just, oh my God, freaking brilliant, which is why I picked her to run an extra thing. But I'll send you an MP3 of her and see maybe it's somebody that you might want to have on your deal, because she's just, she's down to earth, she's articulate, which I'm obviously not, and she gets it, man. She communicates in such a way that I'm sitting here going, oh, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I had a scientist, that was on
right.
a couple of weeks ago that was talking about brain chemistry and how that affects our thinking and choices and things like that. And some people might think, on the first hearing this, some people might be thinking, what does this have to do with law enforcement? It has everything to do with law enforcement, how we think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our actions, but it has everything to do. So I try to think outside the box, and I think I'm doing a good job with that, with just a mixture of guests on my show to kind of just have a different take of it, but we can tie it back into law enforcement and criminal justice.
That's brilliant, man. No wonder you're having such a good time with it, and it makes it easier to attract good guests.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I got a great. I can't do it alone. You know that, David. I got a great team behind me. I got my marketing team, and the people who handle my social media. It's so funny. Every once in a while, my wife will tell me, "Yeah, you just tweeted something out." I'm like, "Oh, I did? I didn't even realize that." Because it's my team behind me. My team behind me that's handling my social media. Big shout out to those guys. I couldn't do it alone. Like any successful person. There's a great team behind you.
So with all I'm a big fan of looking forward. So what kind of changes do you see you're facing law enforcement in the future? I mean, some of the same old things are going to stick around for a while, but is it the wellness? Is it the emotional mindfulness? Is it more interaction with communities? What do you feel the future holds?
Well, I think there's so many different facets to this. Obviously, crime is always going to be. There's always going to be crime.
Right.
I believe it starts with having good officers at the helm and good officers out there making good decisions. And yes, I believe that officers need to be taking care of themselves. Need to exercise. Need to eat right, and learn how to communicate better. I think we're great communicators, when it comes, I think, to the with the public, but I think sometimes we have a hard time, in our personal lives communicating. So, but yes, I think we definitely need to keep connecting, with the community and get out there and make those connections. I think that's a challenge. It's always going to be a challenge, especially in times where, something has happened in the media and people are kind of, being very critical of law enforcement. That's not the time to kind of crawl into a shell and kind of say, all right, have that us against them mentality. That's the time where we need to get out there and do more community policing and do more connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge sometimes, and I think that's always going to be a challenge, but we can do it. We serve our communities, and so we can't just have that mentality where it's us against them. And I think for many years it was.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think all of us at some level have that fight or flight kind of mentality, and
Sure.
I think that's human nature, but we've got to pay attention to that and not just be knee-jerk reactions to it.
But I think I'm very optimistic, for the future, David. I think law enforcement is, we're constantly changing, we're constantly evolving, we're constantly learning. It's a demanding job. We've got, a lot of issues facing us, but we can overcome them. But we're going to need we're going to have that partnership with the community, and I think we're doing a good job. We're gaining some ground, and it's a never-ending process.
Well, and I think this is the opportunity, folks, for you to help law enforcement gain some ground in that, and help educate yourselves along the way, and not just assume things that some of us are so good at. And that means to go to cjevolution.net and sign up for Patrick's podcast. And I assume your podcast is everywhere there are podcasts, right?
Yeah, it's on Stitcher, it's on Podbeam. You can head over to my site. You can get them delivered to your mailbox. So yeah,
nice.
I appreciate the plug, David, and we're having a great time. So
well, it's an important feature in this world that we're in, and God bless you for bringing it to the forefront and taking care of yourself and role modeling for other officers how to do it right, and the community as well, obviously. So cjevolution.net. And Patrick Fitzgibbons, our criminal justice expert. Really enjoyed it, man. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for your service.
Well, thank you, sir, for having me on, and thank you for all the listeners out there, and keep up the good work, David.
All right, you too, man. Take care.
Your 20-minute podcast with David Brower has been brought to you by Audible. You can listen to any of David's podcasts anywhere podcasts can be found, including iHeartRadio, the Spotify mobile app, and at davidbrowervo.com/your20-minute podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening.